Hi children, today I am going to start third lesson in geography and the title of the lesson is Hydrosphere. Already we have learnt about this hydrosphere in brief in our second lesson. In this lesson we are going to learn about hydrosphere in detail. Hydrosphere, this word is derived from the word in Greek language hydra, which means water. It is derived from a Greek word hydra, which means water, and it is the sphere of water surrounding the earth's surface. It comprises all the water bodies like rivers, lakes, ponds, seas, oceans, etc. And there is some water deep under the ground among the rocks, which we call as groundwater. Hydrosphere includes this groundwater also. Now let us see what is this hydrological cycle. Hydrological cycle, as you know, water is a renewable resource and it can be used again and again. Water from all the water bodies gets evaporated due to sun's heat and reaches the atmosphere. It comes down to the earth's surface in the form of rainfall. And this rainwater again joins the lakes, rivers and finally oceans, from where it again gets evaporated and reaches the atmosphere. And this movement of water from water bodies to the atmosphere, from atmosphere to the land and from land to once again to the water bodies is called as hydrological cycle. I am repeating this. This movement of water from water bodies to the atmosphere, from atmosphere to the land and from land to once again to the water bodies is called hydrological cycle. And this movement of water can be in the form of liquid, solid and gaseous stage. And this hydrological cycle is expressed mathematically as RF is equal to RO plus ET. RF means rainfall. RO means runoff. When rainfall occurs, some part of the rainwater is absorbed by the earth's surface. Where there is tree cover or plants, they stop the rainwater and it gets percolated into the ground and gets recharged as groundwater. And where there is no tree cover or forest, the water runs off from one region to another region according to the slope of the land. And in hilly areas also, the water moves from one place to another place. And this movement of water is called runoff. That is indicated by RO. RO means runoff. ET means evapotranspiration. The total amount of water vapor that reaches the atmosphere through evaporation and transpiration comes back to the earth's surface in the form of rainfall. So, total rainfall is equal to runoff plus evapotranspiration. Transpiration means the plants also release water vapor through a process called transpiration. And this water vapor also reaches the atmosphere. Now, children, you can see the hydrological cycle in this figure. See, the water from the oceans is getting evaporated and reaching the atmosphere. Again, it is coming to the earth's surface in the form of precipitation or rainfall, finally joining the oceans, from where it again gets evaporated and the cycle goes on like this. And that is why it is known as hydrological cycle. Now this hydrological cycle has 6 stages. There are 6 stages of this hydrological cycle and they are evaporation, transportation, condensation, precipitation, runoff and groundwater. Now let us see one by one what are these. The first one is evaporation. Change of water from liquid to gaseous stage is called as evaporation. And due to sun's heat, the water in the water bodies like lakes, rivers, seas and oceans evaporates and reaches the atmosphere as water vapor. Plants also release water vapor into the atmosphere through a process called transpiration. And the second stage of hydrological cycle is transportation. Water moves from over the oceans to over land in the form of clouds. You might have seen clouds are carried away due to the winds from one place to another place, which is known as transportation. And the third stage of this hydrological cycle is condensation. If the temperature falls below dew point or below 0 degrees Celsius, the air loses its capacity to hold water vapor any longer. And at this stage, the water vapor in the clouds is converted into billions of tiny particles of water or snow. In this process, tiny particles of salt, dust or smoke act as condensation nuclei. And this change of water vapor into water or ice or snow is called as condensation. And under favorable conditions, this process, that means condensation, is followed by another natural process called precipitation. Always condensation is followed by precipitation whenever there are favorable conditions. Now the next one is precipitation. It is a natural process involving the deposition of atmospheric moisture on the Earth's surface in various forms such as rain, snow, sleet and hail. That means all the water vapor, when it is getting evaporated from the water bodies, the water gets evaporated from the water bodies and the water vapor reaches the atmosphere. And it comes down to the Earth's surface again in the form of rainfall, snowfall, sleet or hailstones. That means atmospheric moisture is getting deposited on the Earth's surface in various forms as rainfall or snowfall or sleet or hailstones. And this is called as precipitation. Once again, I am repeating the definition of precipitation. It is a natural process involving the deposition of atmospheric moisture on the Earth's surface in various forms such as rain, snow, sleet and hailstones. If condensation takes place for a sufficiently long time, the condensed particles of water coming together, they grow bigger and bigger in size. Now, the clouds cannot hold them any longer as they grew bigger in size. So, they drop them in the form of rainfall on the Earth's surface. If precipitation involves falling drops of water, it is called as rainfall. And if it is in the form of snow, it is called snowfall. If it is in the form of drops of water, it is called rainfall. And if it is in the form of snow, it is called as snowfall. Sometimes raindrops freeze during the descent and fall on the ground as stones of ice, which are called as hailstones. And sleet, it is a thin layer of ice formed on the ground due to the freezing of raindrops. And this sleet we can see normally during winter, during morning time, we can see a thin layer of ice formed on the roads. And it cannot be seen by the drivers or vehicles and they skid on the road. It leads to many accidents, this sleet. So it is a thin layer of ice which is formed on the ground due to the freezing of raindrops. And the fifth stage of hydrological cycle is runoff. Most of the rainfall that occurs in the form of precipitation flows down the hilly slopes, and some of the rainwater percolates into the ground and gets recharged as underground water. If there is no tree cover to stop the rainwater, it flows down from one region to the other region according to the slope, and this is called as runoff. The remaining rainwater joins the rivers, lakes or ponds and finally reaches the sea, where it gets evaporated again. And the last stage is groundwater. Now already we know what is groundwater and how it gets recharged. In some regions, under special circumstances, groundwater can even flow upward in artesian wells. You might have heard of artesian wells in your previous classes. If not, I am going to explain now. Please listen to me. Artesian wells are mostly found in Australia. By drilling the ground, that is, by drilling the earth's surface, groundwater is brought to the surface like springs. In the form of springs, the groundwater is brought to the surface and it is utilized for irrigational purposes. And these are called artesian wells. And these artesian wells are mostly found in Australia. Now, water sources. Out of the total volume of water, 97.25% is saline water, that is salty water, which is found in the seas and oceans, and only 2.75% is fresh water. And out of this fresh water, 68.7% is found in the form of ice and snow, 29.9% is found in the form of groundwater, and 1.4% is found in the form of rivers, lakes and reservoirs. And total comes to 100%. 68.7% found as ice and snow, 29.9% underground water, and 1.4% rivers, lakes and reservoirs water. And total comes to 100%. Now, oceans. Already we have learnt in our previous lesson that oceans and continents are the first order landforms. And second order, there are three types of landforms we have learnt earlier. First order landforms are oceans and continents. Second order landforms are mountains, plateaus and plains. And third order landforms are the valleys or the rocks or any other landforms which are formed due to the action of rivers, glaciers, wind, etc. They are called as third order landforms. So oceans and continents are the first order landforms. Now see the table here. There are 5 big oceans in the world. And here they are given according to their size. The Pacific Ocean is the largest ocean. And it separates Asia and Oceania from the Americas. Americas means North America and South America. Pacific Ocean separates Asia and Oceania. Oceania means Australia, New Zealand. Below Australia there is New Zealand, another country. Australia, New Zealand, and above Australia, Papua New Guinea is there. So together these three are called as Oceania. So Pacific Ocean separates Asia and Oceania from North America and South America. And the second largest ocean is the Atlantic Ocean. This ocean separates the North America and South America from Europe and Africa. That means Americas are separated from Europe and Africa by the Atlantic Ocean. This is the second largest ocean. And the third largest ocean is Indian Ocean. And it separates Africa and Australia. Because on the left hand side of India it is Africa, on the right hand side of India it is Australia. So these both are separated by Indian Ocean. The Antarctic Ocean, it is the fourth largest ocean, and the southern part of Pacific Ocean, Atlantic Ocean and Indian Ocean is called as Antarctic Ocean or the Southern Ocean, because it is the southern part of these three oceans, Pacific, Atlantic and Indian Ocean. It is also called as Southern Ocean. So the Antarctic Ocean, it encircles Australia. And the last and the smallest ocean is Arctic Ocean. And sometimes it is considered as a sea of the Atlantic because it is the smallest ocean. It is considered as a sea of the Atlantic, and it covers North America and Eurasia. This is about the oceans. Now, the first successful worldwide deep sea expedition is Challenger. Worldwide deep sea expedition was conducted by the British, and this expedition was called as Challenger. Now, the next part of the lesson is relief of the ocean. This is the most important part of the lesson. Relief of the ocean means the relief features of the ocean floor. Ocean floor is mainly divided into 4 parts. You can see in the figure those 4 parts. The first one is continental shelf, second one is continental slope, third one is deep sea plain or abyssal plain, and the fourth one is oceanic deeps or trenches. And these 4 parts you can most clearly you can see in the next picture. In this figure you can see here. See the part which is indicated as 1, that is continental shelf. That means from the seashore up to a depth of 200 meters, it is continental shelf. And the second part, as indicated in the figure, it is continental slope. It is in the form of a slope. And third one, it is deep sea plain or abyssal plain. And fourth one is oceanic trenches or oceanic deep, the deepest part of the ocean it is. Now let us see what are these different relief features of the ocean floor. The first one is continental shelf. It is the shallowest part of the ocean basin, and its depth is up to 200 meters. It occupies about 7.6% of the ocean area, and this continental shelf is like a border zone between land and sea. And the largest continental shelf is Siberian Shelf in the Arctic Ocean, stretching to a width of 1600 kilometers. The largest continental shelf is Siberian Shelf in the Arctic Ocean, stretching to a width of 1600 kilometers. And the second part of the let us see how this continental shelf is useful for us. You can see that this continental shelf, this is the shallowest part of the ocean. So all the seafoods which human beings are using, those seafoods are available only in this part of the ocean. So continental shelf provides us with all varieties of seafoods. And the second one, we can get petroleum and natural gas also only from this part of the ocean. Continental shelf only provides petroleum and natural gas. We are extracting petroleum from Mumbai High and also from Krishna Godavari basin we are extracting petroleum. So all this is only from the continental shelf part of the ocean. So we are getting petroleum and natural gas also from continental shelf. And thirdly, it is most suitable for building seaports because it is the shallowest part of the ocean. It is very easy to build seaports in this part of the ocean. In this way, continental shelf is useful to us. Now the second one is continental slope. It has complex relief. Its depth is between 200 meters to 3000 meters, and it occupies 15% of the total ocean area. And submarine canyons are found in this region. Already we have learnt what are canyons in our second lesson. What are canyons? Canyons are narrow valleys which are formed due to the action of river or glaciers. And these valleys are narrow at the bottom and wider at the top. And already we learned that the biggest canyon, what is it? The Grand Canyon of Colorado. It is in USA. It is the biggest canyon in the world. So these submarine canyons are also found in this part of the ocean. In continental slope we can find the submarine canyons also, and these canyons are formed by erosion process of rivers and glaciers. And some of these submarine canyons are bigger than Grand Canyon of Colorado, which is the biggest canyon in the world. And this continental slope boundary indicates the continents. From the boundary of this continent slopes, we can see the continents will start. And the third feature of the ocean floor is deep sea plain or abyssal plain. And this part of the ocean occupies 76.2% of the ocean basin. And its depth varies between 3000 to 6000 meters. And it is the gently sloping area of the ocean basin. And also, these are the flattest regions of the world. And the last one is oceanic deeps or trenches. There are some deep scars on the ocean floor, usually along the volcanic islands, which are the deepest places on the Earth's surface and are known as oceanic trenches or ocean deeps. Generally, we think that these deepest parts of the ocean, that is oceanic trenches or oceanic deeps, they are found in the midst of the ocean, but that is wrong. Most of these oceanic deeps are found more close to the continents, and that is the reason why these oceanic deeps help in the study of plate movements. And so far, 57 oceanic trenches have been explored. You can see in the figure here, the major oceanic trenches are given here. The deepest point in the Pacific Ocean, it is Challenger or Mariana Trench, and its depth is 11,022 meters. And Atlantic Ocean, the deepest point in the Atlantic Ocean is Puerto Rico or Nevis, and its depth is 10,475 meters. And the Indian Ocean, the deepest point of the Indian Ocean is Java Trench, and its depth is 7,450 meters. Now, we'll see the definitions of some of the terminology which is related to this lesson. Isotherms. What are isotherms? Lines connecting places of equal temperature on a map. On a map, we can connect places which are receiving equal temperature, and those lines are called isotherms. These are only imaginary lines, please remember. So lines connecting places of equal temperature on a map, they are called as isotherms. Second one is isobars. Lines connecting places of equal atmospheric pressure on a map, they are called as isobars. Isoheights. Lines connecting places of equal rainfall on a map, those are called as isoheights. Isohalines. Lines connecting the points in the ocean having the same degree of salinity, those are called as isohalines. And isobars. Lines joining points on the seabed at an equal vertical distance beneath the surface, and these are also known as depth contours. Now, in this part of the lesson, I am going to give you some homework. Read the part of the lesson, complete it by underlining all the important points with pencil. And secondly, learn and write all the 1 mark and 2 mark question answers without seeing in your notebook from front. SS1 Geography and Economics to be maintained from front part of the notebook, I said. Third one, learn all the definitions from this part of the lesson. I hope you are doing your homework which is being given by me at the end of the lesson.